Hello, everyone. Let's label together the structures on the blank figures of the pectoral girdle, the clavicle, and the scapula. Starting with the bones that form the pectoral girdle. First, we have the clavicle, and the second bone is the scapula. The collarbone is the clavicle, and the shoulder blade is the scapula. This right here is the joint that is formed by the articulation of the acromion, which is a structure on the scapula with the clavicle bone. This is called the acromioclavicular joint. Moving to the structures on the clavicle. First, right here, this is the sternal medial end. This is the end which articulates with the sternum. We can also see the sternal end right here. This is the acromial, also called the lateral end. The acromial end of the clavicle articulates with the acromion of the scapula. Right here we can see the acromial end. And on the posterior aspect of the clavicle, we have a unique structure, which is the conoid tubercle. So as soon as you see the conoid tubercle, you can easily identify the posterior surface of the clavicle. Moving to the scapula, we will go over the two figures, starting with the first one right here. This is the anterior aspect of the scapula. This structure right here is the acromion, whereas this structure right here is the coracoid process. This notch right here is on the superior border, so it is the suprascapular notch. It's a U shape. This right here is the glenoid cavity, which receives the head of the humerus, which is the bone in your arm. This surface right here is the subscapular fossa. This border is the superior border, where we have the suprascapular notch. This is the lateral border. So the glenoid cavity guides you toward the lateral aspect of the bone because it receives the head of the humerus. That is the lateral border. And this right here is the medial border of the scapula, which faces toward the vertebra. This is the superior angle, and this is the inferior angle. Moving to the posterior aspect of the scapula, this right here we can see part of the coracoid process. This right here is the acromion. Now we can see the acromion fully. The acromion is on the posterior aspect of the scapula. This right here is the suprascapular notch. We can see part of the glenoid cavity, which receives the head of the humerus. This is the medial border, which faces toward the spinous process of all the vertebra, whereas this is the lateral border, the glenoid cavity on the lateral aspect. It is away from the midline of the body. So the midline of the body is right here where the spinous process of the vertebra are. This is the medial border. That is the lateral border. and we can see the glenoid cavity laterally. This is the superior angle. This right here is the spine. So the spine, it ends with the acromion. The spine divides the posterior aspect of the scapula into two fossa. This is the supraspinous fossa. Notice how the supraspinous fossa is superior to the spine. This is the infraspinous fossa, which is located inferior to the spine. So don't confuse the three fossas we talked about. The subscapular fossa, which is on the anterior aspect, we have one subscapular fossa, and we have a supraspinous fossa, one superior to the spine, and one infraspinous fossa inferior to the spine. Let's identify the structures one more time. This is the acromion right here. This is the coracoid process. So there are two different structures. The acromion, it continues as the spine. Right here we can see the glenoid cavity, which is on the lateral aspect of the scapula. This right here is the infraglenoid tubercle, infra-inferior to the glenoid tubercle. This surface, this is the subscapular fossa, which is on the anterior aspect. And this right here is the infraspinous fossa. I hope you found the video helpful. Check out my next video on the anatomy of the humerus, the radius and the ulna, and the skeleton of the hand.